One of the teams in the NFL in 2024 that I think had one of the most positively surprising years were the LA Rams, a team that was led by a star studded offense and a defense that was pretty much just led by rookies and very young players in general. This team was a division winner. This team at one point was 1-4 and turned that into a 10-7 win season. And all in all, this team going into 2025 has a very positive outlook ahead of them. Starting with the offense in 2024, I think it's important to start with Puka, Nacua, and Cooper Kupp. Between these two guys, they missed a combined 11 games, and they still, between the two of them, were one of the most productive duos in the entire NFL. They had Matthew Stafford throwing to him, who it's not going to wow you with his pure stats, but he had one of his better years as a professional quarterback, and that's why they were able to even win a playoff game against the Minnesota Vikings when they really weren't given much of a shot. And Kyren Williams, in a year where we came into this year, there was all the noise about Blake Corum getting drafted. Kyren Williams is going to be returning kicks. That means he's not going to have as much of a role in the offense as we thought. He really quickly put that to bed, and with the season that he had, there's a very good outlook for the Kyren Williams future in Los Angeles, and there's probably at least another 3 or 4 years of looking at Kyren Williams as the lead back for the LA Rams. Onto the defense, statistically, the defense was not great, right? You look at the statistics, they were 17th in scoring, 26th in total yards, 20th in passing, 22nd in rushing. Didn't get after the quarterback very well, didn't take the ball away a lot. But what you have is a solid young core of about 5 to 6 really young sub 25, 26-year-old players, highlighted by the two guys who finished in the top 3 in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting. Jared Verse was number 1 in that voting with his 4.5 sacks, and Braden Fisk was one of the best interior pass rushers in the NFL in his rookie season, and had his own claim to be the number 1 vote getter in that Defensive Rookie of the Year ballot. And safety Cam Kitchens, he, I think, proved himself to be one of the best draft picks on that defensive side of the ball in the entire NFL. He didn't play a whole lot, but still in the amount of snaps that he got, made the most of them. You look at guys like Byron Young, who is in his 3rd year, and he made a huge contribution to this team. Everywhere that you look, I mean, even guys that I don't have highlighted here, like Quentin Lake or like Cameron Curl, Bobby Brown as well. This is a team full of young stud defensive players that it's really reminiscent of like when the Seahawks were super young in their Legion of Boom days. It's not the same exact, I guess, concept of defense, but it's the same sort of thought process, I guess, of just get a bunch of young guys, let them just be the most talented group on the field, and see what you can come out of it. And this defense, like I said, even though they weren't the best at any statistical category, they just have a lot of guys that play really, really well. And they were a major reason, especially down the stretch, where they had a 4-game win streak that I think every single game they held their opponent to less than 10 points. And that was a huge reason, if not the main reason, that they even made the playoffs. Now, looking at a lot of the guys that the LA Rams are going to be losing this year, it's tough for the wide receiver position, and it's tough for their tackles. They're losing 3 guys between Demarcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell, and Tyler Johnson, who, in Demarcus Robinson's case, he was a very big contributor in the red zone in those 1-on-1 situations. And Tutu Atwell and Tyler Johnson, those are just 2 young guys where, especially if you're going to end up trading Cooper Kupp during this offseason, you would love to have 2 young guys to still be with Puka Nacua for the long run. At tackle, Joseph Noteboom and Alaric Jackson, I think, do end up coming back to the team, especially Alaric Jackson. Even though this was a year where he had injury issues, he had a PED suspension at the beginning of the year, I still think they try to bring him back due to his age and his ability to play on this team. And then you look at the defensive side. it's really Bobby Brown and Mike Hoyt who I would think are like the main guys you would want to bring back. Christian Roseboom did lead this team in tackles, but I'm not super worried, I guess, if I'm the LA Rams about Christian Roseboom leaving. I'd be more worried about trying to bring back Bobby Brown and bring back Mike Hoyt. And with that, let's take a look at their depth chart so far going into 2025. Now, obviously, this is highlighted by the fact that Cooper Kupp is still on this depth chart. It seems like from the LA Rams perspective that it's a done deal that he's going to get traded, and that's their main goal is to send him to a different team. But I just don't. I've already made my video about it. I just don't know how early this happens, and I don't know if it gets to a point where it's super late in the offseason, if it even happens. I get that his cap hit is very high, but the LA Rams are doing fine in terms of how their cap structure is set up. And in a few years, when you have guys like Rob Havenstein, when you have guys like Matthew Stafford, when you have guys like Colby Parkinson coming off of your books, you can afford to have Cooper Kupp at a somewhat higher than average value. And especially paired with Puka Nacua, I think the amount of money that you're paying Cooper Kupp, it doesn't really equal the same value that he brings to the offense. With that being said, the main goals that I have for the LA Rams in terms of adding to this offense, it's going to be finding some running back depth, and if Cooper Kupp actually gets traded, add another receiver or two, and maybe that's even just bring back Tutu Atwell and or Tyler Johnson. Now, for that running back position, I would love for this team to just go get Raheem Mostert. This is a guy who just a year ago led the NFL in touchdowns with his 20 that he had for the Miami Dolphins. And this year had some injury issues. He just wasn't playing very much for Miami. And I think Miami's year was just kind of a year from hell. And he was a main contributor to that. And I guess he was a main, it was a detriment to Raheem Mostert very much so. A.J. Dillon and Kenneth Gainwell, look, these would be depth pieces. These aren't going to be guys that you're going to look to on, crucial second and third downs out of the backfield or anything like that. These are going to be depth pieces. These are going to be, 4 or 5 carries a game. These are going to be guys, especially in A.J. Dillon's case. But Kenneth Gainwell has shown an experience to be a goal line back as well, where you don't really want Kyron Williams in the game. And I don't know, especially now that Blake Corum has already had a broken forearm. He's already had his own injury issues. I don't know if you want either of those guys down there trying to get those tough yards on, third down or goal to go situations. So I think both of those guys, Gainwell and A.J. Dillon, would contribute majorly to those situations. Now, defensively, there's not a whole lot I think I would want to do. I think I would want to bring in some veterans to improve the pass rush and the run defense. I would look at guys like DeMarcus Lawrence or Dante Fowler to kind of fill those voids of being able to help both of those situations. And I would really be interested in, I don't know if there's a lot of talk about there being a same town rivalry between the LA Chargers and the LA Rams. And I think one way you could stoke that is sign their corner, Asante Samuel Jr. I think Asante Samuel, when you look at the pure talent that is available at the cornerback position this year, combined with the value of how young Asante Samuel is and the early production he's had, he, in my opinion, is the most valuable corner that's going to be available either through free agency or through the draft this year. And I think if the LA Rams get Asante Samuel, you end up with a defense that has guys under the age of 26 like Samuel, like Jared Verse, like Fisk, like Cam Kitchens, like Jalen McCullough. You have a huge amount of players under contract for a long time, and very talented players at that. And so if you get Asante Samuel, not only do you add that talent, but I think you kind of start this little same town rivalry with the Chargers that I think the NFL would love to have. Now, as far as the draft goes for the LA Rams this year, there's a few goals I think I would have. Now, one thing that's not really a goal, but just something that I could see happening, I would not be surprised to see the Rams be the team that's in on Jackson Dart in the first round. He has talent. He can be a good quarterback. I wouldn't be surprised if Sean McVay sees him as the Matthew Stafford successor. But if they don't go that route, I think a corner in the first is probably the next best option. Either Siobhan Revel or Jahdae Barron should be available. If they have a choice at Tyler Warren with their first round pick, I would take that in a heartbeat. It would be very great to get some actual talent at that tight end position. They tried to fill that position with Colby Parkinson, and with the amount of money that they gave him, it's kind of a bust. But Colston Loveland wouldn't be a bad option either. I think if he's available at 26 when the LA Rams are selecting, that would be a great selection to get Colston Loveland, who, with the year Michigan had at quarterback, his stock in his, valuation in this draft really went low, and I don't think it was much to do with him at all. This is also another one of those teams in the LA Rams where I just feel like throughout the rest of this draft, they don't select again until the number 90 overall selection in the third round after their first round selection, obviously unless they trade back or trade up. This is just whoever they feel best about. I don't think there's much of a need unless you're talking yourself into an offensive tackle in the first round. Somebody that can just project as a future option. Because like I said, Rob Havenstein is going to have a contract coming up in a couple of years. Alaric Jackson, we don't really know if he can be a consistent option at one of the tackle spots. So you get like a Josh Connerly, somebody like that in the late first round. That'd be a good idea too. But throughout the rest of the draft, it's just going to be best player available and the guy that they feel best about, whether it's a quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, offensive line, anybody on the defense. Anybody can help, because again, this wasn't a perfect team last year. Even though they made the playoffs, they were in a pretty weak division, and they got some pretty good luck with the San Francisco 49ers having their worst year in a long time. The Arizona Cardinals kind of fell apart at the end, and the Seattle Seahawks just weren't real contenders throughout the year. So they just need to keep adding talent, and especially on the defense. They have a really good youth movement going there. It'd be incredible to see even more talent go to that side of the ball in the draft. All in all, I am very excited about what the LA Rams could be in 2025 and beyond. If they keep adding to the defense with veteran talent as well as young talent, this could be one of the best groups in the NFL. And offensively, they already have one of the most talented groups in the NFL. I don't think this is a group that wants to split up. Cooper Kupp has already come out and said he doesn't agree with the decision to try to trade him away. Puka Nacua is already one of the best receivers in the NFL. Matthew Stafford is still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And between Kyren Williams and Blake Corum, they have a very good running game. It's just those few ancillary pieces that if they do add, this team is easily winning the division again in 2025. But I also wouldn't be surprised to actually see them go out and try to rebuild and maybe blow it up. I don't know if they trade Matthew Stafford. I don't know if they trade Cooper Kupp. I don't know if they trade anybody. But I wouldn't be surprised if it happens. And if it does, they end up with a lot of draft picks, I guess, bottom line. And they're able to do with those draft picks what they've done in the last few years, and that's just add a bunch of talent and hope that it works out for the best. And they've had a pretty good track record of it these last few years, like I've said.